Hi, my name is Patrice Thatcher. I'm the Program Coordinator for Child Development and Early Education at College of the Siskiyous. And if you are watching this, you are either lost on YouTube or you have been assigned this video clip from one of my ECE classes that you're taking. In this clip, I want to talk about the NAEYC, National Association for the Education of Young Children, and the concept of best practice. In early education, the NAEYC is the premier organization that we look to for guidance. In your classes, I have probably posted position papers on possibly ethics or possibly licensing in early education from the NAEYC. They are the organization that brings together all of the best research, all of the best ideas that are out in the community. There are lots of wonderful organizations, but the NAEYC, National Association for the Education of Young Children, is the organization that we typically look to. They're also the organization which accredits early education programs. So, for example, the Child Development Center, Discovery Child Development Center on the College of the Siskiyous campus, is accredited through the NAEYC, which means they have gone through a long process of self-reflection, community reflection, and external review in order to become a model program. The concept I want to focus on in this video clip is best practice. Early education, we invented this. We were the ones who were talking about best practice long, long ago, before every other program, every other agency in the world started using the phrase best practice. I tell the story about one Christmas Eve when my daughter was filling Christmas stockings, and she turned around because she'd heard this so much throughout her life and said, "Mom, what is best practice in filling Christmas stockings?" By which she meant, what do you put in the bottom, what do you put in the top? And I, of course, being me, went on to tell her exactly what best practice was. However, in this clip, I want to talk about individually appropriate practice, developmentally appropriate practice, and culturally appropriate practice. These are three of the foundations of quality in early education programs. First, individually appropriate practice. It means, not developmentally appropriate practice, but individually appropriate practice. It means that we look at each child as an individual, each child within the context of development, but as an individual human being within that context. We look at where they are developmentally, not where the general child is developmentally, not where a child called typical is developmentally, but where this child, where Susie or Joey or Henry is really in the real world. And based on that, we know what experiences, what activities, and what interventions to offer for that child. So our programs are based on individually appropriate practice, part of best practice. Our programs are, of course, based on developmentally appropriate practice. If you've been in any ECE classes at College of the Siskiyous or other California community colleges, you've heard about DAP, developmentally appropriate practice. And that means to be an early educator, you've been in these classes that are based on child development. You know that there are typical stages of development through which children typically, although there's no typical kid, will grow through. That typically a 1-year-old is not going to be able to learn to share because typically 1-year-olds don't really know that other people exist, let alone have a concept of time for how long they can play with the whatever it is, red ball, and how long another child can play with the red ball. So at any stage of development, we set up programs that we know are appropriate for children at that stage of development. So individually appropriate practice means we look at each individual child and that individual child's circumstance within the world. And developmentally appropriate practice means that we look at general development. We know that because we've taken a lot of classes. You've taken a lot of classes. I've taken a lot of classes. We've been in the world a lot. We know that toddlers are different from preschoolers who are different from kids in middle childhood. And finally, really important, there is culturally appropriate practice. All cultures are not the same, and we live in a country that is wonderfully, magically, lovelily diverse, and children come to us from very many different cultures. An example might be that I used to work in a community in Southern California in which lots of the families were immigrant families from Asia. And one of the things that I do with children is I make eye contact and I get down at their level and I look them right in the eye. And if I didn't know that different cultures do things different ways, a child who didn't want to look me in the eye would be a child that I would wonder about. I'd go, well, what's going on with that kid? Is there something that's atypical with that child's development? But if I know that that child has been primarily raised within a household which has a traditional Asian culture as part of their combined culture, I know that that child is told that no, it's not respectful to look an adult straight in the eye. We know that in some cultures, children are carried for a long period of time. And if a child is carried into my 2-year-old room, I'm not going to say, put that child down. They need to be independent because possibly they are from a culture in which interdependence is highly valued. So just a reminder that the NAEYC, National Association for the Education of Young Children, is the organization from which we have been gifted with the concept of best practice in early education. And the best practice isn't just developmentally appropriate practice, although we hit you over the head with that a lot. Best practice includes individually appropriate practice, appropriate to each individual person in our group. Developmentally appropriate practice, most appropriate to typical development within an age group. And culturally appropriate practice, because we're a diverse and multicultural culture and society. And what is right in one household is not necessarily what is taught as being right in another household. We need to look broadly. Thank you. Let's see if I can turn this off without making my thumb look too big. Yep, there it goes. Thumb being big. Okay.